Two 6-year-old girls stood in the cold Seattle rain, pressed against a toy store window, watching other children laugh in their parents' arms. They didn't ask for toys. They didn't cry. They just waited, hoping someone would notice and stay. Seattle wore its winter rain like a second skin, cold, steady, relentless. Downtown lights melted into the sidewalk, turning puddles into little mirrors that trembled with every passing car. Across the street, the Hale and Hearth Toy Gallery glowed like a warm planet, amber shelves, velvet display risers, hand-carved trains, a painted carousel horse frozen mid-gallop. Inside, childhood looked soft, protected. Outside, beneath the narrow edge of an awning, two girls stood perfectly still. They were the same height, same age. 6. Not twins by clothes, by silence. Wren wore a faded green hoodie under a thin jacket that had seen too many washes. Her hair was pulled into a stubborn little ponytail, the kind you do when you're trying to look fine. Nova had a mustard yellow beanie tugged low over her ears, and she held a worn backpack strap with both hands, like it was the only thing keeping her from drifting away. They didn't press their faces to the glass. They didn't point. They just watched. Inside, a boy bounced on his toes as his parents laughed. His mom filmed on her phone. His dad swiped a black card without looking at the receipt. The boy chose a remote control dragon, and the store associate wrapped it in tissue paper, like it was a crown. The parents leaned in, smiling as if the world had never said no. Nova's eyes followed the dragon, not greedy, careful. Wren's eyes followed the parents' hands around their child, two hands steady, sure. A gust of wind shoved Rain under the awning. Nova flinched. Wren didn't move, but her fingers curled once tight, like she was holding something inside her chest together. Behind the glass, the store felt like a promise. Outside, the sidewalk felt like a question. And neither girl spoke the question out loud. They didn't have to. The longing was loud enough on its own. Gideon Hale didn't believe in coincidence. He believed in patterns, numbers, contracts, systems that behaved exactly the way he designed them to. At 36, he'd built an empire in cybersecurity, sold it at the perfect moment, and bought himself what everyone said mattered: time silence control. The toy gallery was supposed to be harmless, a beautiful side project, a philanthropic headline, a place where wealthy parents could buy nostalgia and call it love. From the back office, Gideon checked the security monitor out of habit. He expected what he always saw: polished coats, predictable faces, children who bounced because someone else would catch them. Instead, he saw the two girls. They were outside, still there, standing with the kind of patience that didn't belong to childhood. Not running, not laughing, not calling for anyone, just staring at the window display, like it was a world they weren't allowed to enter. Gideon's first response was practical irritation. Unsupervised kids in the rain, liability, bad optics. He reached for his phone. Then he stopped, because something tightened in his chest. A strange, uncomfortable tug he didn't have a name for. It wasn't pity. It wasn't guilt. It was recognition. A memory slipped in without permission. Gideon at 8, dressed too nicely for a school recital, standing at the edge of a room full of adults who talked over him like he was furniture. He remembered how he'd learned to stand quietly so no one could accuse him of needing anything. He blinked hard, as if the monitor had shown him something impossible. Two children shouldn't look like they'd already mastered disappearance. His store manager, Sienna Park, stepped into the doorway. "We've got two girls outside," she said softly. "They've been watching for a while." "Are their parents nearby?" Gideon asked, already knowing the answer by the way Sienna's voice lowered. Sienna shook her head. "I don't see anyone." Gideon stood. He didn't plan a speech. He didn't plan kindness. He just found himself walking, and with every step toward the showroom, the life he'd built on certainty started to feel less important than the quiet outside his door. The bell above the glass door chimed soft, polite, almost embarrassed, to interrupt the warm hush of the store. For a second, every head turned. Wealthy shoppers, associates in crisp uniforms, a few children who still believed the world existed for them. Gideon stepped onto the showroom floor and saw them clearly now, not through a camera lens. Ren and Nova stood just beyond the threshold, as if crossing it required permission from someone invisible. Rainwater clung to the hems of their clothes. Their shoes were clean, but worn the kind that had been scrubbed lovingly even when money was tight. They didn't look messy. They looked careful. Too careful. Gideon didn't rush toward them. He didn't loom. He kept his hands relaxed at his sides and let his voice soften on its own. "Hi," he said. "You two okay?" Nova's eyes flicked down, then up again, testing him like a bridge. Ren's chin lifted. "We're just looking." "Looking is allowed," Gideon replied, as if it were a rule he'd written himself. A pause. The store's warmth pressed against their damp sleeves like an invitation. Still, they didn't step forward. Gideon noticed the way Nova's fingers gripped the backpack strap. He noticed the way Ren stood half a step in front of her, protective without making it obvious. Two 6-year-olds playing roles nobody should have given them. He moved slowly, then crouched so his eyes were level with theirs. "It's cold out there," he said. "If you want, you can come inside and look from here. You don't have to buy anything. No one will bother you." Nova whispered, barely audible. "Really, really," Gideon said. He held the word steady the way you hold a candle in wind. "I promise." Ren's eyes narrowed. Not rude, just experienced. "People say that." Gideon nodded once, accepting the truth of it. "Then don't believe my words yet," he said gently. "Just watch what I do." For the first time, Nova's shoulders loosened. She took one small step forward. Ren followed, still guarding, still cautious, yet crossing the line anyway. And the moment they entered the glow, Gideon felt it a shift so quiet no one else noticed. A door had opened. And it wasn't just the stores. Inside, the Hale and Hearth toy gallery warmth wrapped around Ren and Nova like a blanket they didn't know how to trust. Golden lights softened every corner. The air smelled faintly of cedar and vanilla, expensive comfort. A string quartet floated through hidden speakers, gentle enough to feel like it was trying not to disturb anyone's perfect life. The girls moved slowly, keeping their hands to themselves. They didn't run. They didn't reach. They walked the way children walk when they've learned that excitement is dangerous, because it makes adults look at you. Near the center display, a father lifted his daughter onto his shoulders. The little girl squealed, pointing at a dollhouse the size of a small cabinet. Her mother laughed and said, "Pick anything, sweetheart." The words landed like confetti. Nova watched the dollhouse with a quiet ache. Ren watched the mother's face, how relaxed it was, how certain, like love was a guarantee. Gideon stayed nearby, not hovering, just present. He wanted to ask their names, but he didn't want to corner them with questions. He'd learned too late in life that kindness with pressure wasn't kindness. Then a woman in pearls noticed them. She leaned down with a too bright smile, the kind adults use when they want to feel good about themselves. "Oh, honey," she said softly. "Are you girls?" Lost Nova froze. Ren stepped forward automatically, her small body becoming a shield. "We're not lost," Ren said. The woman's eyes flicked over their shoes, their damp cuffs. Her tone changed, still sweet but sharper. "You know this store is very expensive, right?" Ren's face went still. Not ashamed, defensive. Nova's hands tightened around her backpack strap. Gideon felt heat climb his neck. He walked up calmly, his voice polite enough to cut. "They're guests," he said to the woman. "And looking is free." The woman blinked, embarrassed. "I didn't mean I know," Gideon replied. But they heard it anyway. He turned to the girls, lowering his voice. "You didn't do anything wrong." Nova's eyes shimmered like she hated herself for it. Ren didn't cry. She just stared as if memorizing the moment so she could survive the next one. Gideon didn't debate. He didn't lecture. He didn't perform. He simply walked to the front door and flipped the sign to "Closed back soon." Sienna Park's eyes widened. "Gideon, 10 minutes, he said quietly. That's all. The door locked with a soft click. Outside, the city kept moving, umbrellas, headlights, wet pavement. Inside, the gallery became still. The pressure of other shoppers vanished. The air felt kinder. He guided Ren and Nova toward a small lounge area reserved for private collectors, plush chairs, a low table, a discreet kitchenette hidden behind a paneled wall. Gideon motioned for them to sit, but didn't insist. He sat too, not across like an interviewer, but angled like a person trying to share space. Sienna returned with 2 small mugs of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream. Nova stared at the foam like it was something magical and suspicious. Ren glanced at Gideon first, silently asking permission to trust. "It's just to warm you up," Gideon said. "No strings." Nova's voice came out tiny. "Nothing is free." Gideon didn't argue. He nodded as if she'd told him the weather forecast. "Then let's call it a gift," he said. "Gifts don't need to be paid back." Ren didn't touch her mug. "Why are you doing this?" Gideon searched for an answer that wouldn't sound like a lie. The truth was complicated: his childhood, his emptiness, the quiet inside his house. But the girls didn't need his autobiography. They needed something steady. "Because it's raining," he said simply. "And your kids." Nova's shoulders trembled once. She wrapped both hands around the warm mug like she was holding on to proof that kindness existed. Ren finally took a sip, careful like she expected it to be taken away. Gideon kept his voice gentle. "Are your parents nearby?" The question landed hard. Ren's eyes dropped. Nova's lips pressed together. They didn't answer right away. They just looked at each other, silent communication, practiced and fast. Then Ren said very softly, "We have to go back before dark." To where Gideon asked. Nova swallowed. "Mrs. Hart's couch." The words were plain, but the meaning behind them felt heavy enough to bend the room. Gideon didn't react with shock. He didn't let his face show the sudden anger rising in his chest at a world where children measured safety by a couch. He kept his voice calm, careful not to make them feel like they'd said something wrong. "Who's Mrs. Hart?" he asked. Nova answered quickly, like she feared a pause might invite trouble. "She lives upstairs from our old apartment. She's nice." Ren added quieter. "She's just tired. She sleeps a lot." Gideon nodded, absorbing each word like it mattered because it did. "And what are your names?" he asked, shifting to something the girls could control. Ren hesitated, then said Ren. Nova whispered Nova. Gideon repeated them gently as if honoring them. "Ren and Nova." "How old are you?" 6, Nova said. "Both 6. Ren's eyes tightened, and Gideon understood being asked. "Your age can feel like being sized up, evaluated, categorized." He softened. "Okay. Thank you for telling me." Nova's hands hovered near her backpack. After a second, she unzipped it and pulled out a small, cracked photo frame. 2 girls younger sitting on a woman's lap. The woman's smile was tired but warm, real warmth, not the polished kind in magazines. "That's our mom." Ren said, voice steady but thin. Gideon didn't ask how she died. He didn't ask why. He waited. Nova swallowed. She got sick. And then she didn't come home again. The store felt quieter somehow, even with the music still playing. Ren's chin lifted like she refused to crumble. "We're not bad kids." Gideon's throat tightened. "I don't think you are." Ren stared at him. "Some people do." Gideon nodded once, accepting the truth. Then he asked carefully, "Do you have family, an aunt, uncle? Someone who takes care of you?" Both girls went still. Nova's voice dropped to a whisper. "Aunt Celeste." Ren's mouth hardened. She didn't come when she stopped like the words were too big to say out loud in a fancy place. Gideon leaned forward slightly, not invading, just present. "Are you safe with Mrs. Hart tonight?" Nova nodded fast. "Yes." Wren nodded slower. "Yes. But she says people are coming soon. To check paperwork." Gideon understood the fear hidden inside that polite word. Paperwork. A clean way of saying your life might change again. Gideon didn't reach for the girls. He didn't rush them with promises or rescue fantasies. He did the one thing he trusted most. He chose the responsible path. "Would it be okay," he asked gently, "if I helped you get back to Mrs. Hart safely?" Nova glanced at Wren. Wren studied Gideon's face like she was reading fine print. "You won't be mad if we say no?" The question landed heavy. "No," Gideon said immediately. "You're allowed to say no." Nova exhaled like she'd been holding air in her lungs too long. "Okay," she whispered. Gideon stepped a few feet away and made a call, keeping his voice low. "Callum, it's me," he said. "I need advice. 2 children. Possible guardianship risk. I'm with them now." He listened, nodded. His posture didn't change, but something inside him did, something firm and focused. When he returned, he crouched again, so he wasn't towering over them. "We'll do this the right way," he said. "No shortcuts. I'll take you back to Mrs. Hart, talk with her, and make sure everyone knows you're safe." Nova's fingers curled into her backpack strap. "You're not leaving, right?" Gideon met her eyes. "Not until you're home." Wren's shoulders relaxed just a fraction. They walked out together, not rushed, not hidden. Sienna unlocked the door and gave the girls a small wave, no pity, just warmth. Outside, rain kissed the sidewalk softly, now less angry than before. Gideon held the door of his car open, but didn't tell them to get in. "You can sit wherever you want," he said. Nova climbed in first. Wren followed, still watching Gideon like he might disappear if she blinked. As the car pulled away, Nova whispered, "You're really doing this?" Gideon's hands were steady on the wheel. "Yes," he said, "I am." And for the first time that day, the city outside didn't feel like it was pushing them away. The building wasn't dangerous. It was just tired. Peeling paint, a flickering hallway light, the smell of old carpet and lemon cleaner. Gideon followed Wren up the stairs as she counted each step under her breath, a habit he guessed for staying calm. At apartment 2, B. Wren knocked in a careful pattern, tap, tap, pause, tap. The door opened slowly. Maribel Hart, 72, stood there with an oxygen tube beneath her nose and worry etched deep into her face. Relief washed over her when she saw the girls, then suspicion when her eyes landed on Gideon. "Where were you?" she asked, voice trembling between concern and fear. Nova spoke fast. "We were just looking at toys." He didn't yell, he helped. Mrs. Hart's gaze sharpened. "Who are you?" "My name is Gideon Hale," he said calmly. "I own the toy store downtown. I didn't want them walking back alone in the rain." Mrs. Hart's eyes flicked to his coat, his watch. "People like you don't do things for free," she muttered. Wren stepped forward. "He was kind," she said. "He didn't make us feel small." That stopped Mrs. Hart cold. She opened the door wider. "Come in," she said, though pride tightened her jaw. The apartment was small but painfully clean. A couch with a folded blanket. Children's drawings taped to the wall like proof of belonging. A framed photo of a young woman holding 2 little girls. "That's our mom," Nova whispered. Mrs. Hart sat slowly, wincing. "They've been with me since the funeral," she said quietly. "I tried. I really did." Gideon nodded. "I believe you." Mrs. Hart looked at him, tired eyes sharp. "Social services are coming. I can't stop it." Wren's hands curled into fists. Nova leaned into her sister. Gideon spoke carefully. "Then let's talk about how to protect them legally, safely." The room went silent. Hope had entered softly, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. Mrs. Hart didn't soften. Not at first. She'd lived too long to trust easily. They'll place the girls temporarily, she said, while they sort things out. The word dropped heavy between them. Temporary. Nova whispered it like a bad taste. That means leaving. Wren didn't speak, but her eyes fixed on the carpet like she'd already memorized the pattern for goodbye. Gideon felt something cold and steady settle in his chest. Not panic. Resolve. I want to help, he said. But only if it's done right. With your permission, Mrs. Hart laughed once short, humorless. Why would a man like you do this? Gideon didn't give a speech. He didn't talk about money or saviors or destiny, because I know what it feels like to be unwanted, he said simply. And I can't watch that happen to them. Silence stretched. Nova's voice broke it. If we go somewhere else, can we stay together? Mrs. Hart's eyes filled. I don't know, sweetheart, Gideon answered without hesitation. If I'm involved, you stay together. Wren looked up sharply. You can't promise that. Gideon met her gaze. I can promise I'll fight for it. Mrs. Hart studied him like a judge weighing truth against disappointment. Finally, she exhaled. If you do this, she said, you don't get to change your mind when it's hard. Gideon didn't look away. I won't, Nova whispered, almost afraid to hope. Really, Gideon nodded. Really. Wren stepped closer to Nova, hand finding her sister's. Not relief, caution mixed with something fragile. Mrs. Hart closed her eyes for a moment. Then I'll let you try, she said. For their sake. The rain tapped gently against the window, and for the first time, temporary didn't feel like the only future left. Gideon's house stood quiet at the end of a curved driveway, glass and stone reflecting the gray lake like a held breath. It wasn't intimidating on purpose. It was simply unused rooms arranged for magazines, not people. When the car rolled to a stop, Wren and Nova leaned forward, noses nearly touching the window. You live here? Nova asked, careful. It's just a house, Gideon said, hearing how untrue that sounded. Inside, sound vanished. Footsteps echoed. The ceilings felt high enough to swallow voices. Wren slipped her shoes off immediately, lining them neatly by the door, as if she were a guest who might be asked to leave at any moment. Nova followed, copying her sister. Sienna arrived with 2 small tote bags, nothing flashy. Soft pajamas, warm socks, gentle toiletries, a pair of child-sized slippers each. No toys yet. Gideon had decided on that deliberately. Safety first, choice later. These are yours, Sienna said. You can tell me if anything feels wrong. Nova touched the slippers, then pulled her hands back. For how long? The question cut clean. Gideon answered carefully. Tonight you're safe. Tomorrow I'll still be here. And we'll keep doing this the right way. Wren's shoulders tensed at the word tonight, then loosened a fraction at still be here. Gideon showed them 2 rooms side by side with a connecting door they could leave open. He noticed Wren checking the window locks without being asked. He noticed Nova standing close to her sister, measuring the space. You don't have to use these rooms if you don't want to, Gideon said. We can sit together in the living room first. Nova nodded. Wren didn't answer, but she followed. They sat on the couch, the lake darkening beyond the glass. Gideon kept his phone face down on the table. No calls, no interruptions, just presence. House rule, he said gently. You can ask questions. You can say no. You can tell me if something scares you. Nova whispered, fun if it's silly, especially then, Gideon replied. Wren finally spoke. We don't want to be separated. Gideon met her eyes. You won't be. Wren searched his face like she was checking the hinges of a door. After a moment, she nodded once. Not trust, not yet. But a test passed. As night settled, Gideon realized something unsettling and beautiful. At the same time, the house no longer echoed because it was empty. It echoed because it was listening. The first night wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that asks questions. Gideon read aloud from a book he hadn't opened in years, his voice steady even when the words stumbled. Nova lay curled on her side, clutching a pillow like it was a passport. Ren sat upright longer than necessary, eyes tracking every sound. When Gideon finished, he stood. "I'll be downstairs. Door open or closed, your choice." Nova whispered, "Open." Ren nodded. Hours later, a soft sound traveled down the hallway, bare feet pausing, then retreating. Gideon was already awake on the sofa, light on glasses perched low like he'd been expecting the moment. Nova appeared, hugging the pillow. She froze when she saw him. "I thought you'd be gone." "I'm here," Gideon said, not moving too fast. She sat at the far edge of the couch. "I had a dream." "What happened in it?" he asked. "We were packing," she whispered. "Always packing." Gideon didn't rush to fix it. He let the truth exist. "That sounds exhausting." Nova nodded, eyes wet. "Ren says dreams tell the truth." "Sometimes," Gideon said. "Sometimes they tell us what we're afraid of." Ren hovered at the doorway, pretending not to listen. Gideon caught her eye. "You can come sit too." She hesitated, then did, straight-backed, brave. "If we wake up a lot," she said, "will you get mad?" Gideon felt the question land like a bruise. "No." "Even if it's annoying," Nova added. "Even then." Ren's shoulders dropped an inch. "New night rule," Gideon said. "If you wake up scared, you come find me." No apologies, no consequences. Nova leaned into the pillow. "Promise," Gideon nodded. "I promise effort. I promise staying." Ren considered the phrasing, effort, staying. She approved of honesty. They returned to their rooms. The door stayed open. The connecting door, too. Later, Gideon heard it, a small whimper, then another. He moved without thinking, kneeling beside Nova's bed, then Ren's. "I'm here," he said softly. Nova reached for his sleeve. Ren watched his face, checking for impatience. Finding none, she closed her eyes. The house didn't echo anymore. It breathed. Morning arrived, pale and unsure. Gideon burned the first batch of pancakes. Nova laughed, one quick sound, surprised by itself. Ren smiled without showing teeth, then busied herself stacking plates. Gideon's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stepped into the hall and listened to the voicemail. "Mr. Hale," a woman said, smooth and controlled. "This is Celeste Adler. I'm the girl's aunt. I've been informed you currently have my nieces. Family doesn't belong with strangers. I'll be filing for custody. Please return my call so we can handle this cleanly." Gideon stood still, phone warm in his hand. Not fear, clarity. He returned to the kitchen, slipped the phone into his pocket, and sat. Nova watched him closely. "Bad news, adult stuff," Gideon said. "We'll handle it." Ren's eyes sharpened. "Is it about us?" Gideon met her gaze. "Yes. And it's my job to keep it from hurting you." They ate slowly. Nova traced a syrup line on her plate. Ren folded her napkin, precise. A knock came later, gentle, announced. Ms. Tessa Rowe, the social worker, arrived with a clipboard and a calm smile. She spoke with the girls, first sitting on the floor at their level. Favorite colors? Favorite snacks? What helped them sleep? Nova answered politely. Ren listened carefully, measuring tone. Then Ms. Rowe turned to Gideon. "There's a petition from Ms. Adler. As a biological relative, it will be considered. We'll need evaluations." Gideon nodded. "I'll comply." After she left, the house felt heavier. Ren asked the question she'd been holding. "Does this mean we have to go no decisions today?" Gideon said. "But there will be steps." Nova whispered. "People keep saying temporary." Gideon took a breath. "I can't control the word. I can control what I do." Ren studied him. "What will you do?" "I will show up," Gideon said. "Every day. And I will fight legally for what's best for you." Nova's eyes filled. How hard as it takes?" Ren nodded slowly, accepting work over promises. That afternoon, Gideon called his lawyer. "I want to pursue guardianship," he said. Then, after a pause, "and prepare for adoption." The word settled into the room like a vow, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. And for the first time since the girls had stood outside the glass, hope didn't feel like something they had to watch from afar. The house learned new sounds in the days that followed, small ones that mattered. A spoon clinking against a bowl. Footsteps padding across the hallway at dawn. A door opening, then pausing as if waiting for permission. Gideon noticed them all. He noticed how Nova hummed when she thought no one was listening, and how Wren stopped humming when she realized someone was. Paperwork arrived in neat envelopes that pretended to be calm. Evaluations, home checks, schedules. Gideon answered emails with the same precision he once used to close acquisitions, but the stakes were different now. Each message carried a child's heartbeat inside it. The girls noticed too. Wren sat at the dining table one afternoon, lining up crayons by shade, cool colors on one side, warm on the other. Nova watched her sister's hands, then copied the order exactly. "Are we in trouble?" Nova asked quietly. "No," Gideon said. He set his laptop aside, deliberately closing it. "We're just doing the steps." Wren didn't look up. Steps to where Gideon chose honesty over comfort. Steps to figuring out where you'll be safest. Nova's shoulders tensed. "Here, that's what I'm working toward," Gideon said. "But I won't lie to you. There will be meetings, questions." Wren's jaw tightened. Grown-ups ask questions like they already know the answers. Gideon nodded. "Sometimes they do. That's why it helps when kids tell the truth." Nova frowned. What if the truth isn't enough? The question cut deeper than Gideon expected. He stood across the room and knelt so he could see both faces clearly. "Then it becomes my job to make it enough," he said. "That's what adults are for." That night, Gideon found Wren in the guest room folding clothes into a careful stack. "Not packing, preparing. What are you doing?" he asked gently. Wren didn't stop folding. "Practicing. For what?" "For when someone says it's time," she said, voice even. Nova hovered in the doorway, clutching a stuffed bear Sienna had brought earlier. "Wren says if we're ready, it hurts less." Gideon sat on the floor with them legs crossed. "I can't promise that it won't hurt," he said. "But I can promise you won't have to be ready alone." Wren looked at him, searching for the trick. "People say that." Gideon met her gaze. "Then watch what I do." He didn't tell them everything about the voicemail from Celeste Adler about the way the system weighed blood ties. He told them what they needed to know: they were seen, they were protected, and they didn't have to earn their place by being quiet. Later, when the house went dark, Gideon heard a soft knock at his door. Nova stood there, small and brave. "Can you sit with us till we sleep?" He didn't check the time. He didn't think about tomorrow. He followed. As the girls drifted off, Wren whispered, almost embarrassed, "If we wake up scared again." "I'll be here," Gideon said. "That doesn't change overnight." Wren nodded, satisfied enough to try sleep. The house settled, listening. Silence pressed in, but this time it wasn't empty. It was waiting. Celeste Adler chose the toy gallery for their meeting. She understood appearances. She stood beneath the amber light's tailored coat, immaculate expression, soft enough to be mistaken for concern. Gideon arrived early and waited by the counter where 2 weeks ago, 2 6-year-olds had stood outside in the rain. So Celeste said, smiling thinly, "You're the man who collects children now." "This isn't a performance," Gideon replied calmly. Celeste laughed lightly. "Everything is, especially custody." Her eyes traveled the store, expensive, curated. "You've done well." "This isn't about money," Gideon said. "It always is," Celeste countered. "Blood matters, courts know that. Safety matters more," Gideon said. "And stability." Celeste leaned closer. "You met them on a whim. When this becomes inconvenient, when it costs time, reputation, you'll step aside." Gideon didn't raise his voice. You didn't step in when their mother died. Celeste's smile tightened. I had my reasons. And now, Gideon asked. Now I'm ready, she said. And I'll win? Prepare them. Children adjust better when they expect change. The word prepare tasted like poison. Gideon watched her leave, resolve hardening into something unmovable. That evening, the girls sensed the shift. Children always do. Something happened, Nova said at dinner, pushing peas into a careful line. Gideon nodded. Yes. Wren's eyes sharpened. Is it Aunt Celeste? Gideon paused. He chose clarity without cruelty. She wants to be part of decisions. Nova's voice trembled. We don't want to go. Gideon reached across the table and rested his hand there, not grabbing, not pulling. I know. Wren swallowed. She scares us. Gideon felt anger rise, controlled, protective. Then that matters. The social worker returned the next day. Evaluations began. Home inspection. Gentle questions. No intimidation. No threats, just systems moving the way systems do. Wren answered carefully, choosing words like stepping stones. Nova answered honestly, emotion close to the surface. Both were brave in different ways. Afterward, Gideon found them building a tower of wooden blocks, meticulous, deliberate. Temporary custody hearing, he explained. The judge will listen. Wren didn't look up. Temporary means not forever. Yes, Gideon said. But it's a step. Nova whispered. Steps can go backward. They can, Gideon agreed. Which is why I'm taking another one. He called his lawyer. File for adoption, he said. Not just guardianship. The line went quiet. Gideon, that escalates everything. Good, Gideon replied. I'm done being careful with their future. That night, Nova asked the question she'd been carrying like a secret. If we're really good, can we stay? Gideon knelt eye level. You don't have to earn a place to exist, he said. Not here. Wren studied him, searching for conditions. Finding none, she leaned her forehead briefly against his arm, trust offered carefully. Family court looked ordinary, beige walls, hard benches, fluorescent lights that flattened every feeling into the same shade. Gideon sat with Wren and Nova between him and the child advocate. Their feet didn't touch the floor. They swung slowly, a rhythm that matched their breathing. Across the room, Celeste sat, composed, navy suit, immaculate. She looked like a brochure for stability. The judge entered, Judge Eliana Sloan, calm eyes, measured voice. The room settled. Arguments were made. Blood ties, continuity, best interest. When it was Gideon's turn, he stood. He spoke without flourish. These children have experienced loss and uncertainty. They deserve consistency. Removing them again would cause harm. Celeste's attorney countered smoothly. Children attach quickly to novelty. Family should be prioritized. The judge turned to the girls. Wren, Nova, can you tell me where you feel safest? The room held its breath. Nova spoke first, voice shaking but steady. With Gideon. Wren nodded, then added stronger. He stays. Celeste leaned forward. They're confused enough, Judge Sloan said gently, firmly. The court recognizes the children's expressed preference. After deliberation, the ruling came: temporary custody remains with Mr. Hale pending further evaluation. Temporary again. The word pressed in. Outside the courtroom, Nova tugged Gideon's sleeve. Did we do it wrong? Gideon knelt, hands warm on small shoulders. You did it perfectly. But it's still temporary, Wren said quietly. Yes, Gideon answered. And that's why we keep going. At home, the house felt heavier, quieter. Nova grew silent, eyes following Gideon like a weather vane. Wren reorganized shelves that didn't need organizing. That night, Gideon found the backpack by the door, open, empty, waiting. What are you doing? He asked softly. So it's easier, Wren said. If we have to go. Gideon closed the distance and sat on the floor with them. I won't let the word temporary become a countdown, he said. I'm filing everything. I'm meeting every requirement. I'm here. Nova leaned into his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Promise you won't get tired. Gideon closed his eyes. Fear doesn't scare me away, he said. I promise effort. I promise presence. The next morning, Gideon prepared them for a private interview with the judge. No parents, no lawyers. Just the truth, he said. There are no wrong answers. Nova asked. What if we cry, then you're telling the truth? Gideon replied. Ren nodded, brave and scared at the same time. Okay, then we'll be honest. As they left for the courthouse, Gideon realized the truth of it. This wasn't about saving children. It was about becoming the adult they needed. And whatever came next, paperwork, hearings, waiting, he had already chosen. He wasn't going anywhere. The judge's chambers were smaller than the courtroom, quieter, warmer. No bench, no gavel. Just a low table, 2 soft chairs, a bowl of wrapped candies no one touched. Judge Eliana Sloan sat with an open notebook. Beside her, the court-appointed child advocate waited, pen ready, but posture gentle. Ren and Nova sat side by side, feet dangling, hands linked, like they'd practiced this moment in their sleep. Thank you for coming in, Judge Sloan said softly. There are no right or wrong answers today. I just want to hear what feels true to you. Nova nodded quickly. Ren nodded slower. The judge began simply. Can you tell me about Gideon? Nova's shoulders relaxed a fraction. He stays, she said. The judge smiled. Can you tell me more? He makes breakfast even when it burns. Nova added, serious. And he listens when I talk. When I wake up scared, he comes. The advocate's pen moved quietly. Judge Sloan turned to Ren. What about you? Ren took a breath. He doesn't tell us to be quiet, she said. He lets us say no. He doesn't get mad when we ask the same question again. What question? The judge asked gently. Ren's voice dropped. If he'll be here in the morning. Judge Sloan nodded. And is he? Yes, Ren said. So far. The judge shifted. What about your Aunt Celeste? Nova stiffened. She scares me, she said, then hurried on as if afraid she'd done something wrong. Not like yelling. Like, she talks like we're not there. Ren added, careful with words. She talks about us, not to us. Has she ever hurt you? The judge asked. Both girls shook their heads. Nova pressed her lips together. But my tummy hurts when she's near. The judge leaned forward, voice steady. If you could choose, where would you live? The room went very still. Ren looked at Nova. Nova nodded. With Gideon, Ren said. Because he chose us first. The advocate looked up sharply. What do you mean by that? The judge asked. Nova's eyes filled. He didn't have to, she said. But he did. Judge Sloan closed her notebook. Thank you, she said. You were very brave. Outside, Gideon waited, hands clasped behind his back. When the door opened, Nova ran straight into him, hugging his legs like she'd been holding herself together with string. I told the truth, she whispered. That's all you ever needed to do, Gideon said, voice steady even as his chest tightened. Ren stood close, eyes bright. We both did. Gideon knelt and hugged them carefully, no squeezing, no rushing, just presence. As they walked down the long hallway together, he knew the truth didn't always win. But today, it had spoken. 3 days stretched longer than 3 years. Gideon kept his routine, steady school drop-offs, dinners on time, the same bedtime questions answered with the same patience. He didn't want the girls to feel the weight of the waiting, but children sense weather shifts. Adults try to hide. Nova grew quiet, watching doors like they might open without warning. Ren reorganized the house, books, aligned shoes, straightened backpack, returned to the door just in case. One afternoon, Gideon found Ren sitting on the floor with a stack of folded clothes. Precise edges, practiced calm. Are you packing? He asked softly. Ren shook her head. Just making it easier. For who? Gideon asked. For everyone, she said. If it's neat, people don't get annoyed. Gideon sat beside her. You don't have to make things easier here. Ren's eyes searched his face. What if being easy is the only way people stay? Gideon felt the question cut clean. He chose his words with care. I'm staying because I want to, he said. Not because you're easy. Nova hovered nearby, clutching her stuffed bear. What if the judge says no, then we keep going, Gideon replied. We don't give up. That night, the nightmares returned, not loud, not dramatic. Nova sat upright, eyes wide, breathing fast. Gideon was there before she called his name. They said I have to choose again, she whispered. Who said that? Gideon asked gently. The lady with the glasses, Nova said, meaning the judge. Gideon understood then the hearing hadn't ended in the courtroom. It had followed them home, crept into sleep. You already told the truth, he said. You don't have to choose anything else. Nova leaned into him, small and trembling. What if my truth isn't enough? Gideon sat on the floor so they were eye to eye. Then I will make it enough, he said. That's my job. Ren watched from the doorway, brave and scared all at once. Promise you won't get tired if we're scared a lot. Gideon closed his eyes, briefly grounding himself. Fear doesn't scare me away, he said. I promise effort. I promise staying. The email arrived the next morning. Final evaluation scheduled. Ruling on Friday. Gideon read it twice, then once more. He didn't show the girls. He made pancakes. He burned them. Nova smiled at the smell, like it meant something good. At the lake that afternoon, Gideon explained what would happen carefully, plainly. The judge will decide what's best. You don't have to impress anyone. What if I cry? Nova asked. Crying tells the truth when words can't, Gideon said. Ren nodded. Okay, she said, then we'll be honest. As the sun dipped behind clouds, Gideon felt real fear, not of losing, but of what waiting did to children. He wished he could shield them from the pause between hope and certainty, but all he could do was stay, so he did. Friday morning arrived bright, as if the city had decided to be kind on purpose. Gideon dressed Nova in her soft blue sweater, the one that made her feel safe without standing out. Ren chose lavender, then changed her mind, then chose lavender again. The courtroom filled quietly. Celeste Adler sat stiffly now, confidence thinner at the edges. Her attorney whispered. She nodded without smiling. Judge Eliana Sloan entered. Everyone rose. The judge wasted no time. I have reviewed the evaluations, the home assessment, and the private interviews with the children, she began. Gideon felt Nova's hand tighten around his. The paramount concern of this court is the best interest of the children, Judge Sloan continued. Not convenience, not biology alone. Celeste shifted. Ms. Adler, the judge said your petition raises concerns. Your involvement appeared only after benefits and resources became available. Your lack of prior contact weighs heavily. Celeste's face flushed. That's not fair enough, the judge said firmly. She turned to Gideon. Mr. Hale, you have demonstrated consistent care, emotional stability, and a willingness to place the children's needs above your own. Gideon barely breathed. This court orders that Ren Adler and Nova Adler remain in your custody, Judge Sloan said. Furthermore, I am approving the initiation of permanent adoption proceedings. Nova gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Ren's eyes filled. She blinked fast, then let one tear fall. Celeste stood abruptly. You can't do this. The bailiff stepped closer. Ms. Adler. Outside the courtroom, Nova tugged Gideon's hand. Does this mean we stay? Gideon knelt, eyes shining. Yes, he said. It means you stay. Ren searched his face. Forever. We're moving toward forever, Gideon said. The right way. The house felt lighter that night, not louder, just steadier. Gideon tucked the girls in with the same ritual as always, lamp dim, door open. Nova whispered, sleepy. When people get adopted, they don't have to leave anymore, right? That's right, Gideon replied. Ren hesitated, fingers twisting the blanket. Can I try something? Gideon turned back fully. Of course. She looked at the wall, then at him. Dad, she said, testing the word like a bridge. Time slowed. Yes, Gideon said softly. I'm here. Nova smiled, relieved. I just wanted to see if it felt right. Gideon stayed until their breathing evened, until sleep claimed them gently. In the hallway, he pressed a hand to his chest. Some things couldn't be bought. Some things couldn't be rushed. But when they arrived through patience, protection, and choice, they changed everything. And Gideon knew, whatever paperwork remained, whatever steps came next, he had already made the only decision that mattered. He stayed. The days after the ruling didn't explode into joy. They settled. Shoes appeared by the door, 2 small pairs placed without instruction. A nightlight glowed in the hallway, no longer a temporary accommodation, but a quiet necessity. The house didn't feel borrowed anymore. It felt used, and use made it real. Nova began telling stories at dinner, small ones at first. What a cloud looked like. How a leaf followed her on the sidewalk. Gideon listened like each sentence mattered because it did. Wren watched longer. She tested patterns. If Gideon left the room, did he come back? If she asked the same question twice, did his answer change? If she was quiet, was she still welcome? One afternoon, Gideon found the backpack tucked into the closet, not at the door. Empty. Is that okay? Wren asked, not looking up. Gideon smiled gently. It's more than okay. Wren nodded, absorbing the permission, like it might dissolve if she didn't hold it carefully. That night, as Gideon tucked them in, Nova asked, "What happens next?" Next, Gideon said, is ordinary days. School, breakfast, burnt pancakes. Nova grinned. Wren's voice came quieter. "And if we get scared again, then we talk." Gideon replied, "And I stay." Wren closed her eyes, not immediately, slowly, like someone lowering a shield 1 inch at a time. Outside, the lake reflected the lights of the city, steady, patient. Inside, 2 children slept without practicing goodbye. The word temporary no longer hovered over the house. Another word had taken its place. Staying. Sunlight filled the courthouse like it had been waiting. Wren wore a simple lavender dress. Nova wore blue, the color she'd chosen herself because it felt quiet. They held hands, fingers laced tight but calm. Gideon wore the same suit he'd worn the day he opened the toy gallery, the day he thought success was something you built alone. Judge Eliana Sloan smiled as she signed the final document. "Congratulations," she said. "You are officially a family." Nova looked up, eyes wide. "Does that mean we don't have to leave?" Gideon knelt, voice steady. "It means you stay." Wren searched his face for the smallest crack. Finding none, she nodded. "Forever, forever," Gideon said. They walked out slowly, hand in hand, the city unfolding around them like it always had, but different now. On the courthouse steps, Nova stopped. "Can I say it again?" Gideon swallowed. "Yes." Dad, Nova said louder this time. Wren hesitated, then followed, careful but certain. "Dad." The word settled into Gideon's chest, warm and unmovable. He didn't rush the moment. He didn't try to own it. He simply answered the way he always had. "I'm here." And for the first time, the answer didn't feel like a promise. It felt like a fact. Weeks later, rain returned to Seattle, soft, familiar, almost gentle. Gideon walked with Wren and Nova down the same sidewalk where 2 small girls had once stood under an awning watching happiness through glass. The Hale and Hearth toy gallery glowed the same way it always had. Nova stopped. "This is where we met you." Wren nodded. "We were just looking." Gideon smiled. "You came inside." They did this time without hesitation. The bell chimed. Warm air wrapped around them. The store looked smaller now, less like a promise and more like a place. Sienna waved from the counter. "Welcome back." Nova tugged Gideon's sleeve. "Can we look?" "Yes," Gideon said. "And today you can choose." Wren walked the aisles slowly. She didn't rush. She didn't hoard. She chose a small wooden train, not expensive, just right. Nova chose a book. At the counter, Gideon paid. No ceremony, no cameras, just a receipt and a quiet smile. Outside, the rain softened. Wren held the bag carefully. Nova skipped once, then caught herself laughing. Gideon paused at the edge of the sidewalk. He looked at the window at the reflection of 3 people standing close enough to touch. "Do you know," Nova said thoughtfully, "I thought we needed money." Wren added softer, "or something big." Gideon squeezed their hands. "What did you need?" Nova smiled, sure now, someone who noticed. Wren nodded and stayed. They walked on, leaving the glass behind, not because it no longer mattered, but because it no longer separated them from what they needed most: home. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Until our next story.